Do you think custom curtains are out of your budget? Well, you might be surprised. Today I'm going to share a guide to how to select the perfect curtains for your space, and I'm going to give you a comparison and when you should choose custom versus off the shelf. And I'm going to share a direct comparison of an off-the-shelf curtain with the popular retail curtain that are the same size and fabric. I'm Andrea. I'm a virtual designer, and window coverings, I know, are one of the most important things that can make a big difference in the look of your room. It's one of the 4 main things that I almost always change in every room. If you've watched my video on the biggest curtain mistakes, you know that getting the right size curtain is an important part of being happy with your window coverings. But today we're focusing on specifically, should you buy custom or should you buy off the shelf? So let's start with that question first. When should you buy custom and when should you buy off the shelf? First, let's talk about sizing limitations. If you buy off the shelf curtains, the biggest limitation is that they only come in standard widths and lengths. The standard widths are usually around 50 inches or 100 inches, and they come in standard foot lengths, 7 feet, 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet. The problem with these lengths is that windows come in all different sizes, and you really want to aim for your window covering to be about 2 to 2.5 times as wide as your window. So if you want a more luxurious look, aim for 2.5 times. And if you are more of a minimalist, you can go for 1.5 to 2 times as wide as your window. So what does that mean? That means a 30-inch window needs about 60 inches of fabric to cover it, width-wise. And what you get into with off-the-shelf curtains is if you have bigger windows, you have to start buying multiple panels. So the length options are also limited. You can't get a length that is in between 84 and 96. And often the best length is somewhere in between. Let's start with doing a direct comparison of an off-the-shelf curtain from a retailer that we all know and love and a 2-pages custom curtain. These curtains are both made of a linen fabric, and I've put in the same size for both curtains, just so you can see how much it is to get the exact same curtain custom made versus off the shelf. And there's almost no price difference. In my mind, that makes me think, why wouldn't I go with custom if I can get the length exactly what I want for about the same price? Now let's talk about the different hanging methods that are available in both off the shelf and custom curtains. There's rod pocket curtains, there's tab top curtains, there's grommet curtains, and there's ring curtains. And there's lots of different varieties of pleats if you choose a ringed option. So the reason why you might choose a rod pocket curtain is because it's the least expensive mounting option. And it's fine if you have a curtain that you don't want to move, because that's the problem with rod pocket curtains is they're very difficult to open and shut. But you can use them. They can work in lots of spaces. I don't ever want to move the drapes in my dining room, so I have rod pocket curtains in there. Grommet curtains are easier to open and close, but not as easy as the ring top curtains. They also have a different look to them. Tab top curtains tend to have a more casual or country feeling to them, and grommet curtains tend to have a more modern feeling. One thing to know about ring top curtains is that they do require extra hardware, but they are really easy to open and close. So rod placement is something you're really going to have to think about before you order curtains, because you're going to need to know where you want to put the rod before you know what length you're going to get. So if you have 8-foot ceilings, I encourage most people to mount their rod as close to the ceiling as you can, because you want to draw the eye up and give your space the illusion of having higher ceilings. But a safe rule is to mount your rod about between 6 and 12 inches above your window frame. Another thing you're going to want to think about before you order the curtains is, where is the stack back? That's what this is called when your curtain is pushed open. You want to think about how much room you have on each side of your window for the stack back. And this room is a good example. I have no room on the other side of the window for any stack back. So in this case, I have all of the drapes on one side. Typically, most of the stack back fabric is not even covering the window. It's covering the wall, because you want to let as much natural light into your space as possible. So for custom curtains, precise measurements are important. For the width, you want to aim for 2 to 2.5 times as wide as the window. Now, another difference between custom curtains and off-the-shelf curtains is that the widths are presented differently. For example, if you go to the 2 Pages website, they tell you to measure the curtain in terms of the amount of window that you need to cover, because actually there's a lot more fabric because of the pleats. As an example, this window is 30 inches wide, and this is a 30-inch curtain, but it's really more like a 60-inch curtain. So for the length of the curtain, you want to think about how you want your curtain to hit the floor. Do you want it to float above the floor about an inch so that it stays cleaner? Do you want it to kiss the floor where it's pretty precise and it just barely grazes the floor? There's also trouser length curtains, which have a little bit of a fold that lies on the floor. And there's curtains that puddle. So you want to think about what your style is. If you have curtains that puddle, it tends to have a more dramatic look. So think about what style curtain fits with your space. You also need to think about the fabric. Now, one of the things I want to caution you about is if a curtain listing says linen curtain, you really need to check the fabric breakdown, because sometimes curtains that are labeled as linen online do not have a single trace of linen in them. They're really polyester to look like linen. That doesn't make them bad. You just need to make an informed decision about what you're getting, and don't use the title as the fabric description. Be sure to check what kind of fabric is in the curtain. Another thing that you want to think about is whether you want your curtains to be lined or unlined. Lining typically makes the curtains thicker looking and they block more light, but it's an extra cost. So there are different levels of thickness. There are sheer curtains, there are light filtering curtains, light blocking curtains, and blackout curtains. So the one that's right for your space depends on how you're going to use the room. For example, in a bedroom, maybe you do want blackout curtains because at night you want to be able to completely block out any light, but you probably wouldn't need that in a dining room. And one of the things I like to do is use light filtering drapes in most rooms, and then I layer in a light blocking shade that I can close if I want to. So you need to think about the function of the room. And you also want to think about how much privacy you need. If a room needs more privacy, that's another reason why I like to add in a blind or a Roman shade so that I can close that and I don't necessarily have to get the privacy from my curtains. Now let's talk about where you can find custom curtains. One option that I talked about here is 2 Pages, and if you're interested in trying these out, I have a discount code in the description. But you can also find custom curtains at a lot of local drapery workrooms, and they're often really affordable. You can also buy custom curtains online at a place like Etsy, but this is not the kind of custom curtain where they will come install it from you. Even though 2 Pages does have that on their website, I've never tried it. There are also custom curtain makers that will come do a complete installation, which adds a whole extra layer of price to the order because the service of having it installed is often expensive. But it can be worth it because you know you're going to get your curtain hung at exactly the right height if they're doing it. So when you're working with a custom curtain maker, it's a great idea to get samples of the fabric because there is likely to be no option to return it. It can be worth the extra time to get some samples. It's also a good idea to ask about the time frame for delivery. So if you'd like some help figuring out the right size curtain for your room, leave a comment below and be sure to check out the discount code if you're interested in some 2 Pages curtains.